Good morning from the garden. It's Sunday today and the first day of daylight savings time in the Netherlands. That means we'll be finally able to start gardening in the evenings as well, and I'm very much looking forward to that. It also looks like spring is on its way, even though it's still chilly. And this week we were able to plant the first broad beans, spinach and lettuce. And one of the great things about no-dig gardening is that instead of having to spend a lot of time and energy preparing your beds, you can just start sowing and planting. But there are more good reasons not to dig, and in today's video I want to give you 10. The first quite obvious reason, digging is hard work, quite literally back-breaking, and why would you do it if you don't have to? Number 2, one of the reasons given for digging is to bury weeds. But what does actually happen with perennial weeds such as couch grass, which I got here, is that if you cut through the roots, out of every piece of root, new plant will sprout. So you're actually propagating the plant. Number 3, while it's true that you can kill annual weeds by burying them in the course of digging, you will also at the same time be stimulating weed seeds in the soil to sprout. Because when you dig the soil over, the seeds receive a flash of light, and for them that is a signal to start sprouting. So there'll be more weeds sprouting in dug soil. For example, this bed was mulched with spent mushroom compost last spring. It required almost no weeding throughout the season, and even now you can see there are next to no weeds. There's just some winter purslane and violets growing here, which we let self-seed in our garden. Number 4, soil life. Soil is full of living organisms, and those that live close to the surface are adapted to different oxygen levels than those living deeper in the soil. So if you turn the soil, they'll exposed to different oxygen levels than they're used to, and you'll be killing a lot of the organisms in the soil, and the soil will need weeks, maybe months to recover. Number 5, if you add fertilizers and organic matter from above, you're feeding the soil in a natural way, in a way that the soil life is adapted to. This is how it happens in nature. Plant remains, leaves, other debris is deposited on the surface, and it is slowly broken down and gets incorporated into the soil. If you dig it in, it can, and it's not completely broken down yet, it can result in temporary shortage of nitrogen, because the soil bacteria that take care of the decomposition need nitrogen, and that can result in nitrogen shortage in your plants. Number 6, less watering. Undug soil with good structure is much better at absorbing water and retaining it, and that means that much less watering will be needed if your soil is undug. Number 7, better soil structure. Even though digging is often done to loosen up and aerate soil, if you do it, especially if the soil is frozen or very wet, it will damage soil structure. If soil is mulched, this stimulates high earthworm activity, and through their channeling and burrowing, earthworms are capable of loosening up and aerating even quite compacted soil. And just look at here under this straw mulch, how beautifully loose and crumbly the soil is. Number 8, an earlier start in spring. All you have to do in a no-dig garden in spring is rake the mulch to the side, and you have beautiful soil that you can start planting or sowing into. But apart from that, growth is also faster in undug soil in spring, because if the soil was dug over, the soil life needs time to recover, and that results in slower growth in spring in soil that was dug over. Number 9, time saving. Not only does the digging itself require time, but also if the soil was dug, it will require more upkeep later in the season. It will need to be watered more, you will need to do more weeding. So if you do not dig your garden, you will have more time for the fun activities like sowing, planting and harvesting. Number 10, One reason that I do not see mentioned often, but I think is important, is CO2 emissions. When we till the soil, the carbon in the soil reacts with oxygen in the air, and CO2 or carbon dioxide is formed, which is one of the important greenhouse gases. So by limiting soil tillage, we limit CO2 emissions too. And even though the effect of a home-scale garden is not big, I think it's good to be aware of this. So these were my 10 reasons not to dig. Maybe you can come up with more, and in that case let me know in the comments. I hope the video gave you some food for thought and that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Happy gardening!